Welcome back to the Azure podcast. Today is the 21st of April of 2022, and we are recording episode 421 about Project Flash on Azure with our special guests, Pujitha and Sidhanshu Khurana. On teams with me, we have myself, Cynthia, Russell, and Kale. As usual, we will first go through a round of updates before we get into our special topic. Kale, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. I just have two this time. The first one's about Purview, which we've talked about on the podcast before. So not a hugely small thing, but it used to be called Azure Purview. It's now called Microsoft Purview. And there's a nice article up here about folks who are using it. Some of our partners, including the London Heathrow Airport and Grundfos and a couple others. And then basically what this is bringing that into the M365 compliance, set of services. So for those who don't know, Purview, we have a podcast. You can go listen to it. We had some of the folks on, but it's around data governance in the cloud. And so this is coming into the M365 portfolio to be better aligned with those things. So keep an eye out for that. No huge feature change there, it looks like right now, other than tighter integration with M365. The second piece is actually a technical article. Usually we put like announcements about product groups and things like that, but this one I thought was pretty cool because it was around credentials in Azure and how to get rid of them. So there's like two-part kind of blog up here about users versus machines, federated credentials, and all the kind of like options that are up there in the cloud and how to effectively use those to remove as many kind of static credentials from Azure as possible. So I thought it was a pretty nice article. It's a two-parter, and we'll put the link in the show notes about it.
Thank you. And Russell?
Yeah, just a couple from me as well. Just on the Purview one, I thought that was really interesting, that one, and it's kind of a branding thing, but it's also extending the scope of what Purview is. So it's covering now, like you say, the Microsoft 365 compliance piece plus Azure Purview. But I think they've put all together now in one governance Purview portal now as well, so you can go there. So there's a Microsoft Purview governance portal for the governance side of things, and there's a Microsoft Purview compliance portal for the stuff that you would have found on Microsoft 365 E5 or E5 compliance in the past as well. So I can see that now just being a total horizontal, one place stop for all your compliance and governance capability across your data, regardless of whether it sits in Azure or in Microsoft 365. So that was really interesting, that one, I thought. The two other small ones from that I spotted caught my eye were Azure SQL public preview updates, just a couple of small things in there. One is about being able to create and use Azure Active Directory server principals in the master of the SQL database. And the other one was backup history dynamic management view. So this is one of the DMVs. So you can look at the compliance of your automated backups just to make sure that they've all been working well, and you can use T-SQL to query over those. So that's quite a nice feature. And what was the other one? Oh, the other one was, yes, this caught my eye because I used to work for IBM on WebSphere, and this is an IBM WebSphere on Azure feature that's been made generally available. So this is about you being able to bring your own licenses to do some evaluation of how you want to run WebSphere within the Azure environment. I think the link that we've got takes you to a document that gives you 3 different options on how to host, whether you want to use VMs or ARO, Azure Redshift, or Kubernetes. That's it from me.
Awesome. Thank you, Russell. I also had 2 that I am stealing from Evan around SQL. The first one is a public preview of Azure SQL database hyperscale being able to reverse migrate into general purpose tier. So now that is a public preview where you're able to reverse that migration to move back into general purpose tier if you start with the hyperscale tier. So that just gives you more flexibility due to the difference in the underlying architecture depending on whether your needs change. That is possible now in public preview. And also the general availability of zone redundancy for Azure SQL database in the general purpose tier. So I think a lot of our listeners are probably familiar with the capabilities of Azure availability zones that is now available for general purpose tier for SQL database. And one other update that wanted to share is we recently did a 4-part series on a APIM landing zone accelerator. That's something I've been working on for the past year. It is meant to be a set of enterprise scale guidance for customers that want to implement APIM at scale. And it is split into 2 aspects. There is an aspect of guidance where we break down into 6 different critical design areas, as well as reference implementation where you're able to actually start and deploy using either Bicep, ARM, or Terraform. So I'll definitely put that in the link as well. And without further ado, wanted to turn it over to our special guest, have them introduce themselves and tell us more about Project Flash. Pujitha and Sidhanshu, can you introduce yourself to our listeners, tell us what you do at Microsoft, and go from there?
Sure, I can go first. Thank you so much for having us on the podcast. First of all, it's so exciting. But to just introduce myself, I'm a technical program manager. I think that role introduction has recently happened. So now I'm a technical program manager. And I'm part of Azure Core, and I am part of the team called Platform Fundamentals and Quality at the Azure host. That's the PM team name. I know it's super exciting, but my main focus is on VM availability. So just making sure that customer workloads are up and running, measuring any sort of disruptions, interruptions, and characterizing and quantifying that, and ensuring that we are maintaining the quality of the platform. And so that's really my main focus. But with Project Flash that I've been driving for the past, I would say since 2020, so whatever the math there is. So I have been driving Project Flash with the focus on VM availability monitoring. And so I'm super excited to talk more about that as the podcast progresses. So over to you, Sidhanshu.
Yeah, thank you, Pujitha. Yeah. So I am Sidhanshu and I'm an engineering manager at Microsoft Core Compute. I work for availability platform team, and this team is all about all things availability and ensuring that availability of the virtual machines on top of which customer application and services run is really good, so that customers can have a great experience working at Azure and they feel empowered. And I lead the engineering for Project Flash. So yeah, that's pretty much, an introduction from my end. And thank you so much for inviting us here.
To start from a customer perspective, what are some of the improvements that a customer would see from Project Flash?
Yes. So, well, there's a lot of things to, say here. So to set some context as well, right? So why are we seeing this improvement in the first place? Really, back in 2020, we started hearing from a lot of our customers that, hey, VM monitoring is not as great as it should be, and we are struggling. And so that was, I wouldn't say a surprise, but that really, had us investigate what's going on and identify some of the gaps that we had to bridge. So we sort of laid out a 2-pronged approach where we went, hey, let's fix what's missing. Let's make sure that we empower customers in consuming availability at scale across multiple subscriptions at low latencies, consuming availability as a metric. So let's just make sure that we first meet all of their needs. And the second part to that is, how do we make this experience in itself awesome for many of our customers, right? Like, how do we go above and beyond just fixing gaps to ensuring that they have an amazing time monitoring their workloads and are able to mitigate on time. So as the project progresses, they're going to slowly start seeing the quality of VM availability information emitted to them really improve, become more accurate and precise, but more so complete. We want to make sure that they get all the failure attribution details that they need to decide whether they have to take a mitigation, how do they upkeep their business SLAs. We all acknowledge that VM availability is such a prerequisite for running customer workloads in a performant way. And so allowing customers to really have access to real-time data on that will then empower them to just upkeep their own business SLAs. So in addition to quality, just making sure that we emit this information in a consistent way to different endpoints to make sure that it meets the unique observability needs of our customers. So as the project progresses, and since the conception of the project, along with quality, also the usability is going to continue to improve until we reach our long-term experience goal of just making sure that everything is seamless, cohesive, and all the good things. So that's really what customers can expect.
Does this encompass like beyond just like, oh, something went wrong and now I can do, see what happened, see my availability reports, things like that? Does this also encompass things like scheduling ahead of time, like for like host updates or something like that, where like a VM has to be, rebooted for some reason because there's an update or something? Does this also encompass that? Like, I remember there was like scheduling things people could do so they don't get affected in certain hours and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so this is more like a reactive model, right? As part of Project Flash, when we see unanticipated issues as part of the platform health going down due to several reasons, it can be due to power issue, hardware issue, a software issue, etc., or an array of issues. And in such cases, we want to provide this availability information in near real time and at low latency to our customers so that they can act accordingly. Coming from engineering, various customers have different architectures deployed in Azure. So for example, if we provide this availability information in low latency way and in a scalable fashion, then depending on the information they have got, they can fail over to a healthy machine, right, or a healthy host, right, which helps them to have a great experience, and also they can basically uphold the trust and confidence for their end customers. So overall, the goal is to ensure unanticipated faults are being taken care of in a good way.
How do some of these efforts extend to, for instance, the PaaS services that are built on our platform as well? And how does it apply to like our internal engineering teams who are also customers of these VMs?
That's a great question, right? When we started this project, it was just let's solve the biggest problem that we have right now in order of priority. And I think we all acknowledge that VMs are a super critical part of running your workloads on Azure. And so with all of the multitude of gaps that we had identified, as Sidhanshu had alluded earlier as well, latency of disruption, propagation, and scalable consumption and all of this, that we had enough, or I should say more than enough, to solve just for VMs at this point. So our scope right now is more so focused on VM availability and how do we make that monitoring experience amazing for our IaaS customers. But moving forward, we have so many different ways of expansion of scope, right? Number one, we know that customers don't just care about VMs, right? They want to know, what's my storage health, networking health. We know this, and we want to make sure that we give them holistic monitoring, which means that we give them proactive notifications, as Kale was talking about earlier. We make sure that we give or apply the same principles to other resources as well, storage, networking, and give a more cohesive view to customers. And that also means that we then expand scope to PaaS customers, but all of that is in due time. We just want to make sure that, at least for now, we fix the fundamental gaps with VMs, make sure we empower customers just enough so that we can then focus on a little more than just VMs.
Was this level of monitoring that you've now exposed to customers, was it available internally before, or have you extended that as well? And when you were doing it, was there anything that you discovered that you didn't know that was really unexpected that has led you to maybe give some feedback to the engineering teams to improve something fundamental across the board in the data centers?
Yeah, I can take that. So basically, we did have some kind of health monitoring but that was not super scalable. It was not with low latency. And if the availability information, as we mentioned, is not available or it's taking high latency, then it's not adding a value add to the customers, right? So on our portal, we still publish, the health of the VMs, but there are some cases when this, publishing is delayed, right? So the intention behind this project is to provide this data in a better way. And we modeled recently as a availability metric, to certain array of mission critical customers at Azure. And we are improving the quality of the signals. We are, taking the multi-facet approach here so that this availability data is provided to customers in a good way, so that they can, consume it either from the portal or, even they can have a programmatic consumption of these availability data so that it fits well into their architecture.
Yeah, just to dovetail on that, like you mentioned a few times, like they could see this stuff in the portal or automated and things like that. So how do people experience what Flash is bringing forward? Is it just like enhancements to like Azure Monitor or existing services, or is it like some new dashboard or something that they should go to?
So yeah, I'll let Pujitha to answer this question.
Go ahead, Sidhanshu, and then I can add on. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So basically, as I mentioned, we modeled a new metric that was not existing in our platform, which is called VM availability metric by its name. And customers can see this new metric as part of their portal, and also they can consume this programmatically, and take decisions accordingly. Now, this metric is really a strong signal, how we power it up to our customers and how they can use it. So this is a brand new thing. And we aim to do, public preview, sometime, but we have not figured out the plan yet. But it's still available to a set of customers, who want to consume it. And also, like on top of that, we are integrating with different endpoints, right? Today, for example, we don't publish the availability annotations or data to Azure Resource Graph, right? And our plan is to publish that data as well, so that customers can just write one query where they can get the availability information for their thousands or 10,000s or 100,000s of the VMs, right? And that provides a scalable channel to them. So these offerings are definitely, some of the offerings are improvements on top of what we have today, and some are brand new, so that overall we cover a lot of cases. And we want to make sure each and every customer of Azure is really happy and empowered.
Yeah, I can just add on to that as well. So Sidhanshu has touched on some great points, but to step back even a little more, right? So why are we emitting to different endpoints? It was really about when we sat down with customers and said, what is it that you want to do with VM availability and how is it that you want to consume it? What was interesting was every customer obviously had different stories to share. They're also unique and based on differing sizes and what is it that they want to accomplish on Azure. It was quite obvious to us that monitoring is not a one-size-fits-all solution. And we also wanted to make sure that just because of the urgency that's associated with monitoring VM availability, right? Imagine you're a customer and you don't have an idea of what the health of your workloads is. That's scary. And so that is a critical piece of infrastructure for all of our customers. And so due to the urgency that we have, we decided, let's make sure to check off all of these different use cases. And so we emitted the metric because it's a time trend, right? Where you can continue to track your availability as a time series, set up metric alerts. And then it's such a fundamental way as well of triggering runbooks and all of that. So that's within Azure Monitor. And then as Sidhanshu mentioned, ARG for the scale. And then we're also trying to come up with an instantaneous alerting mechanism, which is more event-based. So all of this is to essentially check off these different use cases and make sure that customers are able to meet their needs. But in parallel, what I alluded to earlier as well, we understand that emitting to different endpoints and having customers go, oh, what's your use case? And now decide which endpoint is the best for you may not be the ideal experience. And so we are continuously brainstorming, hey, how do we bring all of these different solutions together? And really think about what's our long-term strategy here? How do we provide a cohesive solution where it's non-redundant? unique representations of availability, but also highly discoverable, so that I, as an engineering PM, don't have to be in calls with customers and go, oh, let me understand your needs and recommend solutions, right? I have to remove myself from the process. And so it's really about how do we empower customers in discovering the right solutions for them, understanding what that solution does, as well as ensuring that it's giving them high quality information in a way it's best usable by them. And so that's really the goal as well, in addition to what Sidhanshu had mentioned.
And you mentioned there too, just to follow on again to that, like the preview bits. So it sounds like some of this stuff's in private preview. Is there like a form or something that we can direct our listeners to if they're interested in this kind of stuff, that they can get in touch with you like most easily for enabling those features?
Yeah, for sure. So the private preview is for the VM availability metric. So what we're doing, and we're very picky about this in a sense that we want to get it right this time. We have quality issues because, we just did a lot in a short period of time. So what we want to do with this private preview is release it to a small group, really iterate on the feedback and our own infrastructure that we are really, evolving at this point. Make sure to fold that feedback in and then slowly open it up to public preview or even a select public preview adoption. So we're trying to take it as slow as possible. So at least for now, I understand the excitement behind adopting this metric, and really we understand the use case and the importance, but we want to make it right. And so we're just slowly phasing this out. So right now we're still deciding on when we want to open this up for more customers. But for now it remains still closed off just because we're iterating on the feedback.
For customers that are newer to just starting out with IaaS workloads, how should they think about monitoring? Because you just mentioned there are a number of different ways or a number of different metrics that different customers are looking for. But if someone were to start fresh, what are areas that they should be considering?
Okay, I can take that. So it depends on the needs of the customers, right? What kind of applications and services they run, and definitely the cost as well. So different solutions have different cost, right? So they need to understand, what is the specific needs, and they need to discuss, their architecture internally and then use our, public offerings, or even if they want to onboard on some of our private offerings, which are in private preview right now. So it really depends, right? As Pujitha mentioned, there is no, one solution that can cover all the needs. So then they have to decide, what is the one which really fits well for their use case, and whether it's working well or not. And then based on the feedback and how it is going, and in a data-driven way, they can use multiple endpoints as of now, and yeah, build good applications, and be happy in terms of availability of those applications in terms of data consumption, and and have their architecture well fit in there.
Yeah, I can piggyback on that as well. We want customers to be excited about monitoring and not, have that be a pain. I think that's just where we want to start off. We don't want it to be overwhelming. I think that's been a lot of feedback that we received is, why is it overwhelming? And that's exactly what we don't want it to be. And so we are, number one, trying to improve our documentation, so that we don't have to have the customer spend a lot of time and really sieving through, okay, what is it that I need? And, what can Microsoft do for me? And then really struggling there. So documentation, we're trying to make it super easy, to make it obvious as to which endpoint or service is best suited to their needs. And so that's number one. Number two is just making sure that as a customer, when they're looking to onboard, it's really about, do I want more of the quick instantaneous checks, or do I want the programmatic consumption via APIs, REST APIs, or do I want to consume this at scale? What we notice is most customers, and usually this is what I make as a recommendation as well, you will have different needs and it will continue to evolve over time, right? And so as it continues to evolve, it's always good to make sure that you're checking off different use cases like low latency alerting and continuous and periodic monitoring. And so just be open to exploring all the different ways that we do offer VM availability today, and just start somewhere. right? We have offerings that meet all your needs. So just start playing with all of that and then identifying what best fits with your downstream tooling.
Thank you. I think that's super helpful. Really just start and find out from there, because there are many options, not just for monitoring, like really across all the different services that Azure provides as well, of having multiple ways to solve the same problem. So with that, Sidhanshu and Pujitha, it's been awesome having both of you. Are there any upcoming updates that our listeners should look forward to, or any additional information you'd like to share?
Yeah, we released a blog recently, and Pujitha wrote that really good talk. And I would recommend customers, to read that blog and be excited about Project Flash. And I think myself or Pujitha can share the link of that blog as well in this channel. And this blog tells us, what we have done so far and what exciting is coming, as part of our roadmap. And yeah, that's pretty much I wanted to convey.
Yes, the blog has definitely been a huge milestone for us, just because we've been talking about Flash with customers for so long and getting them excited, and then there's no official documentation that they can go back and say, hey, I had this conversation. And so we were really happy when we got to publish this, and we usually push this on everybody that we speak with. So please feel free to share this. But second of all, as a customer, you can definitely expect to stay updated by just upkeeping with the series in which we posted the blog, which is Mark Russinovic's Advancing Reliability series. So when we do have updates, which we absolutely anticipate we will by the end of the year, we will continue to post on this, in this series. So please stay updated. But there's some great things coming. I'm really excited. There's, more failure details, and we're chipping away at some of the feedback that many of our customers have given. So I'm just going to say stay tuned and keep your eyes out for another update in the series.
Yeah, the blog's really good. I've had a quick look at it, and thank you. It's got loads of great detail in there. I particularly like the bit about explaining how to hook into Azure Event Grid and stuff like that. That's the kind of thing I know. So thank you.
Yes.
Well, thank you both for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, folks. Thank you. Bye.
Folks.
Thank you. Bye.